Instagram. I'm going to talk about the best diets of 2022. Stay tuned. Hey, good evening, everybody. Dr. Nathan Thompson with Exemplify Health Center and the Wellness Way. Hope you guys are having a great Thursday evening. Happy January 5th, I believe, which I think is the second largest day of chocolate consumption. That's when everybody quits their diet, is on January 5th. So guys, I want to talk to you about a really interesting article that just came out, Helio News. And they just came out with, this was reported last year, but they probably won't come out with it for this year. So this would be the best diets of 2021. And the diet that was considered, quote unquote, the best is the Mediterranean diet, named best overall diet for the 5th consecutive year. So I want to go over with you, all of these different diet plans, what all of them have in common. And if you are just talking about a weight loss perspective, why some are more successful than others, why there's a commonality when it comes to all of these different diet plans with all of these different types of names. And then just make sure you watch it to the end, because I'm going to talk about hey, how do you know which diet plan is going to be best for you? Because I will tell you, I have put people on a more carnivore type diet. And I've also put people on actually a more vegan diet. And the answer is that it always depends. It always depends. And I'll show you why it will actually depend. So Mediterranean diet, named the best overall diet for the 5th consecutive year, U.S. News and World Report. A panel of 27 experts rated 40 diets in 7 categories, including the ease of following the plan, its ability to produce short and long-term weight loss, nutritional completeness, and safety potential for preventing diabetes and cardiovascular disease. So they looked at all of these. So 40 different quote unquote diet plans that people have attached, a name to it. And let me just say this, guys, when it comes to diet, I hate the word diet. I think that diets suck. It's, it's like we get so tied into, I'm going to do this diet and this diet only. And rather than take a personalized approach, actually by looking at testing and try to figure out which one your body truly, truly needs. And there's a lot of different factors that are going to play into that. So Mediterranean diet was considered the best overall diet when it comes to all of those different factors. So the best overall diets, and I'm not going to go over what each one of them is specifically. You can actually just go and probably do a search on U.S. News and World Report, Best Diets 2021. And so best overall diets, Mediterranean diet. Number 2, tied for number 2, is the DASH diet, which really has to do with a anti-hypertension type diet, dietary approaches to stopping hypertension. Just remember this, hypertension is not all caused by heart disease. You can have hypertension basically due to a stress response, an adrenal stress response, which is why they put people on a certain blood pressure medication known as metoprolol that basically inhibits the production of adrenaline, which thereby will lower blood pressure. Just remember, if I smash your big toe, you're going to have an adrenaline dump. Your blood pressure is going to go up. You're going to go into fight or flight. So there's a lot of different things, DASH diet, and then tied for the best overall diets, the flexitarian diet, which is a lot of it is just basically a vegetarian diet, but then saying, yeah, we're going to give you some flexibility if you'd like to add in some animal products and red meat and things like that. And so that's why they say the best of it is, well, it's easy for people to follow through with as well. Best diet plans, Mayo Diet, the Weight Watchers, and Jenny Craig. What's interesting, best weight loss diets, they're talking about for long-term, the flexitarian diet, Volumetrics, and Weight Watchers. What's interesting about weight loss diets, especially I'll mention, they were all tied for first. Volumetrics basically is saying you're going to restrict your calories down to 800, 1,000 to 1,200 calories every single day. And also, I believe, involves a lot of meal replacement things that they're sending to you as well. And don't get me wrong. Sometimes people busy on the go, if they have pre-shipped meals that can come to them, because again, part of it is your ability to be able to follow through as well. I actually order pre-shipped meals to my house because I just a lot of times don't have time to sit down and cook. It's just one of the natures of what I do, being in full-time practice. But what's interesting is Weight Watchers was tied for first. And actually, if you look at the foods that they're recommending to eat, they're not very good. Well, then why is it considered one of the best weight loss diets? And I will tell you it's because of accountability. So there is an aspect of accountability and also just the ease of being able to implement it, which can make a difference. Now, here's what's interesting is number one still is the Atkins diet as far as fast weight loss diets, okay? The Atkins. So why the Atkins? Well, guys, if you are not basically getting any carbohydrates, one of the first things that you will see as far as weight loss is you will see a reduction in stored sugar in your body known as glycogen. And that will be within your skeletal muscle. And that will also be mainly in the liver. And when you start utilizing glycogen, because you're not providing any sugar, then one of the things that you will see is you'll see a tremendous loss of water weight. I talked about that. If you go and search the page, just a short video on that. So you can lose water weight. How do you lose water weight? Go through your glycogen, number one, and then number two, inflammation. So there's some pretty cool things that you can do in regards to inflammation, and it has to do with inflammatory triggers that are caused by food allergies. No, not the IgE ones, but the IgG ones that involve the gastrointestinal system. It's a different immune response than what people would consider an allergy. So Atkins actually is still number one. The HMR diet and the Optavia diet, the reason why those two is those are two very severely restricting calories. They're talking about putting them on for extended amount of time, 800 to 1,200 calories per day. Okay. The best diets for healthy eating: Mediterranean diet, DASH diet, and flexitarian diet. Guys, the best thing when they talk about healthy eating, the biggest things, because I have some problems with every single diet because there's no one diet that's going to be clear across the board best for everyone. But when you look at the Mediterranean diet, guys, one of the things that you are doing is you are restricting easily digestible carbohydrates. You are restricting the carbohydrates that are going to be spiking blood sugars and have a consequential insulin response. DASH diet, again, some of the problems even with DASH diet is they're not really accounting in for having things like red meat, mainly because they think that red meat is what is mainly driving cardiovascular disease. Actually, what's driving cardiovascular disease is inflammation. It's inflammation. And so that's why you can become very deficient. In fact, also with the DASH diet, they're also talking about severely restricting salt to approximately 2,300 milligrams of salt per day. Guys, salt is not the problem. Salt is not the issue. Yes, there is a lot of junk food that contains a lot of salt in it, and also MSG, which I guess technically would be considered a salt. But guys, you guys need a lot of salt. You need 4 to 5 grams of salt per day, sodium. Sodium is not the issue when it comes to hypertension. Inflammation is. Guys, you have kidneys. Kidneys are regulating salt and potassium balance. The only reason why people have some problems with potassium balance is usually due to a high blood pressure medication. So you need to be getting 4 to 5 grams of sea salt. Guys, what's interesting is if you are restricting your salt, you can even cause adrenal fatigue, because one of the hormones that has to do with maintenance of electrolyte balance to the kidneys is the adrenal glands, and it's release of the hormone known as aldosterone. So that's why, guys, don't ever restrict your salt. That's why you need Himalayan sea salt, pink Himalayan sea salt, unrefined sea salt. It should be, gray, should be kind of flecked, whatever the word is. And also interesting fun fact is if you do have sea salt, make sure that the grinder is not made of nickel. All right. So you don't want a nickel grinder because nickel is not necessarily good for you inside of the body. So that's why, guys, you start restricting sodium and you start and you're not getting enough potassium, guys. Most of your sodium, most of your potassium is intracellular, which means it's not accurate to measure it on the blood. 97-98% of it is within the cells. And guys, your whole entire nerve system, in order to make a nerve signal, also known as an action potential, runs on sodium and potassium. It's called the sodium potassium pump. And so, one of the things that you see, even if you're potassium deficient, is you will start to notice some problems with fatigue. One of the telltale signs is go up the stairs, and if you get very fatigued, that can be a sign of a potassium deficiency. So anything that says you need to be restricting your salt, I'm kind of like, why do we think that salt is the bad guy? I've never seen a hunter go put a salt lick out in the woods and the deer go up to it and say, wait a second, I heard that this was really bad for me. My deer doctor said that salt was bad. I think I'll leave this salt lick alone, because we do in fact need electrolytes. Okay. The easiest diets to follow: Mediterranean, flexitarian, the Mind Diet, fertility diet, and Weight Watchers. People actually had reached out to me and says, hey, you should look into the fertility diet. What's interesting about the fertility diet is it says, hey, this is what you should be eating in order for it to coincide with different stages of your menstrual cycle. And you should be eating differently according to that. And there's certain things that I agree with when it comes to the fertility diet. There's certain things I disagree with as well. But the biggest thing that I can tell you is that, overall, the Mediterranean diet, they consider the best. Okay. Now, I don't really have any problems with the Mediterranean diet. I think that one of the things that we are lacking is actually enough micronutrients that can easily beget in organ meat. And no, I'm not Liver King, but there is a certain value with organ meat. Guys, look it up and look at the amount of nutrition that is within liver, that is within spleen. Those things are extremely nutrient dense. In fact, one of the highest amounts of iron within a food is actually within spleen. That's why when you talk about it, they say, well, let's name a diet. Let's figure out what would be considered the best. But let me tell you what I always will say. What is the best diet? Okay. What is the best diet for weight loss? Well, we never technically put people on a weight loss diet. Do they lose weight? Yes. Weight loss should be a consequence of health, of regaining your health. Because at the end of the day, if you are just a different number on a scale, but things like certain blood markers aren't healthy, like your hormones haven't recovered, your necessarily insulin levels aren't any better, your A1C blood sugar is not necessarily any better, C-reactive protein is not any better, then what's the point? The only thing that you are doing is you are lowering your gravitational pull on the earth, but you're not necessarily healthier as a result. Guys, if you want to lose weight and you're just worried about a number on a scale, just go ahead and cut your arm off and immediately, you'll be 10, 15, 20 pounds lighter. Or go fly to the moon, guys. You'll be lighter because there's 1/6 the gravitational pull on the moon. So it should be about getting healthy first, and then weight loss is going to be a consequence. So weight loss is a consequence of healthy habits. So what is going to be the best overall diet for you? And I'm going to say this, it's going to depend. This is why, if you really, really, really want to see how you would do better, because people will ask me, well, why did you put that person on more of a carnivore diet? Why did you put this person on more of a vegan type diet? Well, one of the first and foremost things is guys, when you do a food allergy test, no, not food sensitivity test, for it to be a true IgG food allergy, it needs to be positive for all 4 subclasses of IgG. And people always think it's the allergy meaning it's causing, some kind of massive histamine response. They talk about I'm breaking out in hives. I need an EpiPen. I having some kind of problems with breathing, as well. Guys, you can have an allergy response, which is basically the immune system going after a protein that doesn't belong there, that can be in food. The reason why you're not breaking it down the way that you're supposed to, and you got some gastrointestinal permeability issues. So that's one of the first things that we're always going to look at first, is saying, hey, what foods are spiking an inflammatory response and what aren't spiking an inflammatory response. When you talk specifically about food allergies, and no, we're not talking about Everlywell or something like that. What we're talking about is how well you're breaking down your proteins with the stomach, to the pancreas, and the ability to be able to break down proteins and fats through pancreatic enzymes, bile, the release of bile coming from the liver to the gallbladder, and emulsification of fats, transport of fats across the gastrointestinal barrier. So the first thing you got to consider is how well you actually breaking down your food, because when that starts to go bad, then what happens is you're going to develop a lot of undigested proteins that then have the ability to cross through and around the gastrointestinal barrier. And guys, I will tell you something interesting is one of the things that will open up the gastrointestinal barrier, and open up those gates that open up the gastrointestinal barrier, is actually wheat gluten, or basically the subprotein of wheat gluten is gliadin. And that's why I always say, it's interesting. Is wheat all that good for you? What about oats? And what about that? I don't think so. You can get all of the nutrients that are in those, and it doesn't have to be necessarily from grains. And the other thing is too, is look at a stool test too. And going back to why we put some people on carnivores, why we put some people on mostly a vegan type diet, is I have looked at some people, they have really, really poor pancreatic function. They have really poor stomach function. And they actually had developed a lot of allergies to like literally almost every single meat, which means they have a terrible time breaking that down, which is why you may go on a diet and you don't feel very good. You may go, well, I'm going to try a different diet. I'm like, wow, I felt a lot better. Now everyone must be on the diet that I am recommending. Okay. So some people who have really hard time being able to break down their proteins, we may put them on a lot lighter type protein, like with beans, that are a little bit easier to break down. Garbanzo beans, lentils, things like that are easier to break down, and then put them on, a lot of veggies, especially even like steamed and cooked, because it's going to be easier to be able to break down. There's some people, too, that literally had an allergy to so many different types of mostly carbohydrate type foods. And then on top of that, if you look at a stool test and you look at their bacterial profile of their microbiome, you can see these people were eating so many grains. They were eating so many things that were affecting the microbiome, that caused an overgrowth of certain bacteria because the environment was better for it. So, and that's why they're experiencing yeast overgrowth. That's why they're experiencing, certain bacteria that are going to produce more methane, which is why it can cause constipation. Why they're producing some bacteria that were producing more sulfur, which is why they had very smelly gas. And so, I had a woman who came into me. She was very thin, but she always had a food baby, she called it. So every time that she would eat any kind of food, literally she would bloat so much. And it got to the point where she just didn't eat anymore, or had 2 or 3 things. So she had huge amount of food allergies. We're talking like 28 different ones. And I actually told her, you should mostly be eating basically meat for right now. And lo and behold, she ended up losing about 20 pounds in about 6 weeks. And all of the swelling and all of the bloating and things like that went away. And that was the first time that had happened in about 20 to 25 years. So is there a diet that works for everyone? No, I don't believe that there is. Although everybody, is going to should follow basic physiological patterns. What are some of those patterns that you should do? Well, you don't need a lot of processed carbs. Okay. And a lot of these, what they have in common is that they do lower the amount of processed carbs and the amount of junk food. Do people need to be eating vegetables? Yes, I agree. Do people need to be eating liver? Yes, I agree. If you don't like it, take a desiccated one, which is what I do. But, and the other thing is too, is then what's then the difference between the whole calorie restriction type of thing? And this is my personal opinion is if you want to further stress yourself out even more, start counting calories. But I will tell you this is you don't necessarily need to count calories if you are eating very nutrient dense food. For example, there's a big difference between a plate of broccoli, which will have, I don't know, 300 calories and have a lot of fiber, be very bulky and very micronutrient dense with not a lot of sugar. You eat that versus then having a 300 calorie Butterfinger. One will make you full. The other one will make you want to eat 9 more, that being the Butterfinger. So one of the biggest problems when it comes to the United States in literally what I would call an obesity epidemic, a fatty liver epidemic, a leptin resistance epidemic. I'll talk more about that later. You look at all of those different things and really how are people getting an overconsumption of calories by getting high calorie foods with processed carbohydrates packed into a small thing. So that's one of the reasons why. So, this is why a lot of these diets have been incorporated because, well, they've worked for some people. And guys, I've recommended certain diets without testing, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. And I was always like, well, why is that? And that was, up until about 5 years ago, just really doing testing and really trying to understand physiology a lot more and not only be able to help people with food as medicine to be able to provide sufficiency to them. And it's not just food, it's also your ability to be able to absorb and break down, which is why, guys, stomach acid is so important, pancreatic function, gallbladder function is so important, liver function is so important. Guys, if you come from the perspective, the body doesn't mess up. The body doesn't make mistakes. If you come from that perspective, you will start being able to understand why the body is doing certain things rather than say the body's stupid. It's always messing up and I'm going to tinker with it. And if I just fix this one thing, it's going to fix this problem, guys. This is why changing your nutrition can potentially change everything about your body. Can it change your hormones? Yes. Can it change gastrointestinal system? Yes. Can it change the skin? Yes. But guys, even doing other things that are going to lower a stress response inside the body, like a well-placed chiropractic adjustment based off of x-rays, guys, it's amazing. One of the things that you will see is how that can become a physical stressor that affects the gastrointestinal system, that affects the hormone system, that affects the adrenal glands. And this is why, guys, you have to look at it as a whole versus just tinkering with one thing. This is why, guys, you just can't do nutrition and say that's the only thing that I'm going to do, because you have to see how it affects the whole entire body as a whole. And that's why nutrition is key, but it's not the only key. And this is why, if you want to really get healthier, yes, nutrition can help you, but this is why you got to work on the 3 T's. Trauma. You have to look at toxins, think of chemical inflammation, and then you also have to think of thoughts, which is mental stress. Start working on all of those 3, and you will see a tremendous, tremendous change, because essentially what happens is the body has the ability to be able to heal, just like a scab on your leg. It can heal. You don't need kale. You don't need to take a nap, and you don't need to sleep more. You don't need to take a nap. You don't need to go run a 5K in order for that scab to heal. The first thing you have to do is you have to stop creating the inflammation, stop injuring it. And that's why that is so important, because if the body has the ability to be able to heal on its own, when it's not, then maybe the bucket is overflowing and maybe there's too many things that are happening that the body's overwhelmed and it can't go into a healing state. So when you look at these, Mediterranean diet is the best, but my opinion is what diet is the best? The one diet that will work for you the best according to testing. So guys, if you don't already do that, I'll be talking about this live next Monday. I don't know the date next Monday, so it's going to be in a few days. But I'm going to talk about the 4 biggest things that you should be looking at when it comes to roadblocks to weight loss. And then coming up, we're going to do kind of an expanded thing when it comes to roadblocks to weight loss, not only in our office, which is going to be an in-person event. Just make sure you come back to the page and go to the top. We'll have the registration pinned to the top of the page. But then also we're thinking about doing it as a webinar version as well, so that people from all over the world can watch this, listen to this, and understand truly what the biggest roadblocks to weight loss is. And also I'll talk a little bit more detail about some of the most popular diets, what's good, what's necessarily bad for them, but where you actually should start to be looking at instead. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Please share this video. And I hope you guys have a great Thursday. If I don't talk to you guys, I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Happy January. I am right now in day 5 of No Sugar Diet. If you want to know what that is, you can go to the Facebook page, No Sugar Challenge group by The Wellness Way, or you can go to the profile link and you will see what the No Sugar Challenge is. I think that everyone could benefit from reducing their carbohydrates, mainly because when you look in the United States, 60% of people do have some form of fatty liver. And that's one of the reasons why restricting the amount of sugars that you do can help to start to clean out that liver as well. So guys, be well, be blessed. Remember who you are.